Hey, what is up, YouTube? BJ Dell back with another tutorial. Today's tutorial, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to not use any lines. We're not going to use any layers for shadows or highlights. We're just going to use basic shape layers and then use the alpha lock option under the layers menu to add the highlights and shadows directly onto each individual layer. Pretty cool technique. A guy named Gal Shir on YouTube is already doing this. He's got some videos up. Kind of wanted to relay his process to you guys. So check him out. I'll put the link in the description. Also in this video, I talk about why I canceled my iPad Pro pre-order. A lot of people have been asking if they should upgrade, what my thoughts are, so I'll dive into that today as well. Also, just announced Procreate, the new update will be coming out November 7th, so as soon as that's live and I get some time underneath my belt with it, I will do a video showing you the ins and the outs of the new update. So stay tuned for that, but let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Alright, so for today's tutorial, with Christmas coming up and the winter holidays, we're going to go ahead and do a pretty simplistic snowman to kind of show you this alternate way of doing stuff. So the first thing I want to do, I already downloaded a background I want to use off the internet, just basically a cardboard craft paper looking thing, just to give us a background. Since we're using snowman, he's going to be white, kind of need to see what we're doing, so throw that down first. And then I want to start and do the shapes for the snowman. Now right now, Procreate still doesn't have the shapes tool. They're teasing in the new Twitter updates that the new update is going to actually have shapes. So until then, basically I just made this in the graphic program and imported it in. So let's go ahead and down here, we're going to click magnetic. What that's going to do, it's going to kind of let us scale this, and it's going to maintain the same dimension aspect ratio so it doesn't get all wonky looking. So let's go ahead and kind of put it down here. Another thing you can do that's nice, we'll do with this one, if you go up here to the wrench icon and go to canvas and click on the drawing guide, you can edit the drawing guide to give you a 2D grid, isometric, perspective, or symmetry. We're going to use the 2D grid. So what we can see here is this line here down the center. That's going to be our center line, so you can make sure that everything is centered. If you have that magnetic on, it's actually going to lock it in, which is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and lock this in. Right there. All right. So we've got one of our shapes. Let's go ahead and change the color of this one to a red. Then we're going to go up here to our layers, swipe to the left, and duplicate. And it's going to give us another layer. We want to do these right on top of each other. Let's change the color of this one. And go back to our arrow here to resize. And put that on top of this one with some overlap. All right, let's go ahead and go to our layers again. Swipe to the left and duplicate that one. Maybe. There we go. And let's change the color of this one just so we can see what we're doing to make sure we've got it in position correctly. Now this one's a lot different. This style of doing stuff is going to be a lot different than our previous ones that I've done on tutorials on. With those, I started out with a sketch, did a lines layer, did color flats, and then for for shadows and highlights, did those on a separate layer. With this way of doing it, we're actually going to add our shadows and highlights directly to these layers. That's why it's important that all of these are separate layers, and you'll see why here in a second. So we've got that. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to change this color to like a kind of like a gray. We're going to go ahead and do the buttons down the center. Like I said, this is fairly simple just because we are using these basic shapes, and you can see how simple it looks right now, but we're going to do a lot of stuff to this. So I'm just left swiping and duplicating these layers and just moving them down, making sure to keep them lined up with that center line. We've got that magnetic on, so it's going to lock it in and just snap it right to that to make sure everything is where it needs to be. Just keep swiping left and duplicating until you're done. Okay. Move that one down a little bit more. All right, looks pretty good. So now we need to go ahead and do the eyes. So I'm going to duplicate this one more time. Shrink this one down a little bit more here. Turn this magnetic off to get it a bit more fine-tuned. Eyes I kind of want to do a little bit smaller, put them a little bit closer together. I think we hit our max. Oh, no, there we go. All right. Hit the magnetic here so this is lined up. You see when you move stuff left or right, it keeps it locked in to that previous layer, which is awesome. Okay, that's good. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab the buttons that run down the center, and we're just going to drag these together and make one group, just so it frees up some layers. It's okay if those are on all on the same layer, just as long as it's separated from the other layers. And then I'm going to combine the eyes here in a second once I make the mouth. I'm thinking probably like 4 of these for the mouth. Move this one back a little bit. That's pretty good. Now the eyes are going to be a little bit close because we are going to do the nose. So let's go ahead and we'll group these eyes together. Let's move them up a little bit to give us room for the nose. That should be good. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay. And then we can go ahead and group all these together as well. And you can actually group them with the other ones. So as far as our layers go right now, all of the eyes, the mouthpieces, and the buttons down the center, those are all in one layer. And then each individual circle to make up the snowman's body, those are all on a layer as well. So let's go ahead and do the nose now. So let's get our orange. And once again, every single piece of this is going to be a separate layer. So your nose is going to be a separate layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn on, if you go to your brush here, turn on Streamline, just to give it that nice smooth line. Kind of fine tune that in. There we go. So we've got a nose now. And let's go ahead and let's change these to white now that we know they're all positioned correctly. So just clicking the layers, dragging and dropping the colors over there. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do a scarf. I'm going to do kind of a red color here. Once again, new layer. Now this is very important using this technique. You got to make sure that the layers are in the right order over here. So this layer, the scarf, it's going to be underneath the head, but it's going to be over top of this. So we need to move it down to here. And then let's just draw a scarf. And one thing as I'm doing this, I think the buttons are going to be a little bit too big. So this is our button layer. If you go to the select here and just do a selection there, we can actually make these a little bit smaller and move them down. And then kind of do the same thing with these down here, just to make sure they all kind of match up in size. That's pretty close. There we go. That's going to give us a little bit more room to work. Let's go back up to that layer here that was underneath the head that we're doing the scarf on. Go back to our brush. As you can see, since we're doing this on a layer underneath, it goes perfectly around the chin here. You don't have to worry. That layer up here is actually working for you to make sure it looks like it's underneath. And your job is just basically to get it to be a smooth line and look like it's actually being worn by the snowman. Okay, so we've got the scarf. Fix that a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and make another layer. we're going to have the part of the scarf that comes down. We need this underneath the layer that contains this part of the scarf. So let's go ahead and do that. If you connect this together, you can actually just drop that in. So we've got that. Now we want to do a piece of the scarf that comes back here. So we'll add one more layer. Oops. And as you can see, this actually needs to be behind this layer. So we're going to drag this underneath the second layer of the snowman's body. And now we've got a scarf part that comes from behind. So as you can see, we're starting to make some progress. It's starting to look like a snowman. Instead of doing like a top hat or a stovepipe hat, let's do like a beanie or stocking cap. So let's go on top of the head layer here. And we're going to do this in two sections. We're going to do this one for the fold up part, the stocking cap, and then just use your eraser to fine tune it to where, once again, make it look like it's wrapped around and sitting on top of his head. Here, it's too far in, so you shouldn't be able to see that part of the head. But as far as this one, it's coming too far in with the red, so we need to even that up. Oops. Okay. Now let's do one more layer. This, we're going to do a green color, and this is going to be the top of the stocking cap. Okay. And so for this one, we actually, oops, I made another layer already. Oops. We actually want this one to be behind this part of the hat. So drop that layer down, and then like that. So basically, like you can see, we're just using basic shapes to form what the snowman's going to look like. The really cool part is when we actually go in and start to do the shading. So like I said, the shading's all done on separate layers. So the next thing we're going to do is prepare that. What I'll do next is make a new layer, and we're just going to make a color palette off to the side. With this, basically we want to make darker colors. This is going to be what we're going to use for our shadows. And I'll show you why this is important. So let's select the white, and we're just going to use darker color. And we'll just put this over here. We'll put the white next to it to know, hey, we use this for the darker color of the white. Let's go to the red. And then let's just drag this down. Just want something a little bit darker, but you still want that red base color. In my previous videos, you've seen if I do shadows, a really quick way to do it is just make a new layer, just color it in black, and then play with the opacity, because it's going to make a darker color of whatever color it's sitting on top of. Makes it easy because you're not messing around with multiple layers for shadows and having to select multiple colors. With this, it's a little bit more time consuming because you are selecting your actual shadow color, but it gives it a more natural feel too. This kind of has almost a, you'll see it almost as like a classic children's book or greeting card look to it once we're done. There's that, and then finally we're going to do the nose. Get a darker color for that. And these are going to be our shadow colors. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit darker than that. Okay, and then let's do the button part. We'll make a little bit darker one for that. All right, so we're good to go now. We've got our color palette up there that we're going to use. Now let's start at the bottom, and we're just going to start shading. You're going to see this is going to make it pop, make it look three-dimensional. It's pretty awesome. So let's go down to this bottom one. Now the key here is you're going to want to select this layer and then go to alpha lock. What this is going to do is it's going to allow you to color on this layer and not go on any other layer outside of that layer, which is pretty awesome. So we selected this as our shadows color. Let's go ahead and select that. Oops. Not sure what this is over here. All right, now let's go back up to our brushes menu. For this tutorial, we're actually going to use a brush that's standard with Procreate. If you go down to touch-ups and go to noise brush, this is the brush we're going to use. It creates a really cool look to it. Key here is play around with the size of the brush and the opacity of the brush to get the right look. So we've got this layer, we've got alpha locked on here. So let's go ahead and start to lay this down. Now, how we're going to do this is the light source is going to come from this top left-hand direction. So the light source is going to be coming from here. So basically on this side of everything is going to be the highlights. On this side of everything is going to be the shadows. You've got the light coming from here, casting the shadow this way. So that's how we're going to work it. I know somebody asked in the comments too, just yesterday, about doing a video just nothing but highlights and shadows. So that's probably going to be the next video after this one, and kind of give you guys a few tips and tricks of where to put the shadows, how to do them. But you can kind of follow along to this. This is going to be fairly simple since it's circles. But too, I mean, it's something you can do in the real world. I mean, just grab, like if you're looking for how to do shadows or highlights on round objects like this, grab, just grab a ball and put it on your table, and grab a flashlight or the light from your phone and just play around with it and see how the moving the light around casts different shadows. It's something you can do in the real world pretty easy. So just use that and play around with it and see. So got the noise brush, and we're just going to go in here and start adding this color in. Oops, I think I went off. Yep, got it alpha locked. Okay, there we go. Just need to make sure I'm on the right layer. Now, as you can see, as I start to do this, you can already see what's going to happen. Since we're just on this bottom layer, this layer is not affected, so you can already see, hey, look, I can actually see that there's two different circles here. And this is one of the things that you need to do with this technique, is just build it up slowly. Don't go too fast. Just keep going back into it so you can build it up. And you can see we're doing a lot already to give this some definition and make it look like this is actually a round object that's having some light cast on it, and there's some shadows going in. So nice thing with this too is, since we're using these different colors up here and you're on this layer, instead of, if you're go too dark or you mess up, instead of using the eraser, you can actually switch your color back to the starting color, which is this white, and then you can go back in, and that's actually going to work as the eraser, which is kind of cool. You can see it's slowly starting to pull out some of that I just put down. So if you find yourself going too dark, rather than erasing, just go back to that base color and kind of clear some stuff out. So I'm going to turn off this grid now that we're done there so you can see a little bit better. All right, we'll go back to that color again. And doing this color swatch up here, it makes it nice because you're not going hard with the full color down here. So if you switch back and forth from different areas, trying to select the color down here is not going to give you that true color. It's going to be a faded version of that. So going back up here is a lot easier to make sure that everything is uniform and matches up. So we're going to go up and go to the next level now and do the middle part of the snowman. So once again, click on here, go to alpha lock, click that, and start going in. Of course, since the scarf is sitting on top of there, the scarf is going to give off its own shadows. Oops. Clicked off the alpha lock when I went backwards. So yeah, the scarf is going to have its own shadows from sitting beneath, or the white's going to be sitting beneath the scarf. So you'll have that shadow. You'll have the shadows over here from just where it's sitting overall, and then you'll have another shadow coming in from this apart. Let's go back and lighten that up then. Well, like I said, it's just a back and forth. Building it up, and don't worry if you mess up.
Back and forth is usually defined as moving from one place to another and back again.
There you go.
Did that answer your question?
Alexa just told you what back and forth was, so you are well equipped. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and do the scarf. So let's go ahead and let's start with this front one first. Once again, this is going to have the same level. And you'll see here, see, I started coloring in. This is why we use different ones. This gray looks awesome for shadows on the white. Doesn't look that good for the red. So, number one, we've got to turn the alpha lock on here. And then we need to go up to our swatches and grab that red color. And then go back in and start doing this. So you can see that looks a lot more natural. It kind of lines up better too with using the other color. On the white, it goes in a little bit better. So I actually think I'm going to change this. Let's drop this down a little bit lower. It's not quite dark enough. And then if you do make a change, make sure you go back over here and change your swatches. So we go back to the layer that we were on. And go back to our touch-up noise brush. I want just a little bit darker. There we go. See, and already you can see it's just really cool because it adds so much more depth to this. All right, let's go to this back layer here now. So select that layer, alpha lock, and then go back up here to your swatch. And just start filling it in. And this is just a repeat process over and over again. So one thing I'll bring up, because somebody asked in the comments, I answered, but to kind of go in more depth and talk about it. Somebody asked the other day about what I thought if people should get the new iPad Pros coming out. What my thoughts were, if you could go with the new one, grab with the old one. I personally was pretty impressed with the conference that Apple had. Just the freaking Photoshop demo alone was pretty mind-boggling. If you guys didn't see it, during the demo, they were working with, it was like a 3 gig Photoshop file, over 100 layers. It was pretty impressive. So I went ahead and ordered the iPad Pro 12.9 the first day it was available. I went for the 256 gig model. I've got a first gen 12.9. I've got 128 gigs on this. I am pretty much full right now, and I've got to kind of play around with, deleting stuff, moving stuff to the cloud or Dropbox or Drive. So I thought the 256 would be good. However, I canceled the pre-order after some news came out. Got to hit alpha lock on here. Some news came out on the iPad Pros. Like I said, I've got the first gen. This came out almost 3 years ago. It's got 4 gigs of RAM. The way I see it, the iPad Pro, I mean, it's got it in the name. It's a Pro model. It should have kind of top-of-the-line specs, which I know, iPads and iOS devices in general are a lot better at managing memory than an ordinary phone or tablet or what have you. They're very efficient at managing memory. But that being said, the new iPad Pro, it leaked out that the 1 terabyte version is the only version to have 6 gigs of RAM. All other versions have 4 gigs. So the other thing that was pretty much well known, everybody said at the event, all the demo units that they had after the event, they were all the 1 terabyte versions. I'm sure that Photoshop in the demo was running on the 1 terabyte version, meaning all those were running on 6 gigs of RAM. This is the first time Apple's ever done something like this. RAM has been different between different models as far as like the screen size and whatnot, but as far as the iPad Pros, this is the first time that like a 12.9 has split RAM. Apple has not said anything about this. They're kind of being hush-hush about it. But, Photoshop's a program that's going to use RAM. So I can't see that it's going to run the same way on something with 4 gigs of RAM, which my 3-year-old iPad has, or, something that has 6 gigs. It's going to run differently. Procreate runs differently. If you guys have Procreate and have one of the lower iPads, you can't do as many layers as you can on a higher iPad that has more RAM because of the limitations of the program. It uses the RAM, so I can see them working the same way with that. And personally, I use the iPad professionally every single day, but I do not want to spend $1,900 if I go with the cellular model for an iPad. I mean, $1,900 is just absolutely crazy. So that's why I canceled mine. I'm going to wait and see exactly what happens when it comes out. If it is true, from the Geek Benchmark tests right now, it looks like it's true. And I'll wait to get one if and when, Photoshop comes out and reviews come out, how it runs between the different models. If there's a significant difference, I'll probably just wait another year, 2 years, whatever it is, to order one. It's not that big a deal, and I don't see it really being worth the money. So I'm going to darken this one up just a little bit more on this red to go down the sides. So I want to get a little bit more of a pop out of there. There we go. It's really weird to remember to go back and forth between these layers too. If you're not used to it, it's kind of hard to break yourself of the habit of just going. As you can see, as we build this up, I mean, it just keeps getting more three-dimensional. I went, if you saw, just went and switched to a darker red just because it's really not giving me the look that I want. And it's really a kind of back and forth type thing, like I said before, which Alexa so nicely narrated for us. Oh, I shouldn't have said it. She's going to start talking again. And I'm going to go with darker green too, just to darken up this backside. And since I know that I'm pretty much done, I can do this without changing those swatches because I'm pretty much where I want to be. All right, let's go back down and add a little bit darker to the white. So yeah, let me know what you guys are planning. If you're doing the iPad Pro, what model did you get? Did you guys know about the memory situation? I know a lot of people, if they don't follow tech real close, they might not have heard, and there could be some pretty hardcore disappointment if stuff's not going to run the way you expect it to. Apple doesn't officially announce what RAM their iPads have. It's just after they come out and the tests come out, the people run on them, you can tell. But I think it's kind of crazy that they're gonna demo something like an iPad, which you assume it's going to run exactly like they show you on stage, and know that, oh, actually it's got a chance of not running like that because there's different versions of it that we're not telling you about. It's just, I don't know, it's nuts. So as you can tell, I'm kind of salty about it. I was really looking forward to it, but well, no, today's Monday, comes out Wednesday, and of course that's the other thing too. Today the embargo got lifted on people doing reviews on them, and every single review that Apple sent out an iPad for, I'm sure you can guess what model they sent out. That's right, every single review person got a 1 terabyte model. So it further just makes me mad because it's almost like they're trying to hide it and want people to think that some of these things are running faster than what some of the other ones are. So I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what happens. All right, there we go. Now, of course, the last thing I'm going to do is on the body here, the buttons look really fake right now, so we need to add some shadows to the buttons. Make those things pop a little bit here. Oh, we need to go up. Sweet. All right. So just kind of keep in mind of where your lighting is coming from and how that's going to affect it in the real world. You're going to have shadows all being directed in the same direction. You're going to have like this carrot's going to have some shadows to it. These things are all going to give off a shadow. And then on top, we're going to go ahead and knock out some highlights now on the sides. I'm going to start with just a base white to do on the eyes and stuff and the buttons. So let's do that. We're going to make this a lot smaller though, so we can get this. And this is where the highlights come in. So since your light's coming from that direction this way, all of these are going to get hit. This one actually will do it a little bit lower because it's going to have a shadow cast down from that scarf. Cool. And then obviously the white's not going to have much as far as reflection wise goes, but the green and the red is going to. And with this, I'm not even sure color wise what we want to go with yet. So let's just do this. There we go. Red, let's pick something a little bit lighter. Switch to our layer. Go down. There we go. Go down to the neck part of the scarf. Just that, and then the other parts that come down here. Once again, we don't want to get too far in here because this shadow is still being cast from that part of the scarf up there, so we want to do it lower because you really don't want to have highlights overlapping with your shadows because it doesn't really make sense. So this, and then this one back here is really not going to have a highlight because it's got the full shadow coming off of the snowman itself. Let's go ahead and give the nose highlight. Another thing here with the nose we could do is do the lines that run down the carrot, but I'm really not going to do that right now because you can get the idea. I want to make this fairly fast. Get a little bit brighter. Can't really see this. There we go. Let's go. Now you see this red still has a little bit of a fake look to it, so let's go ahead and let's pull this dark color all the way underneath this full thing so it kind of looks like it's rolled over top down to the end here. It's going to build up a little bit more shadow and give it a little bit more depth to it too. And we're going to do it along the green as well, where this is sitting in front. It's going to cast a little bit of shadow here just because it sits out a little bit higher. As you can see here now, we're overlapping this back part, so it's going a lot lighter, so we need to go back in there and fill that in darker again. Alright, let's turn these off. There we go. With this one, I probably build it up a little bit more just to give it a little bit more depth in certain areas. You can go, even darker in these areas and along these areas just to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. That kind of gives you the idea. And like I said, it's just a building process. You just go back and forth and play around, see what looks good, what doesn't. If you go too dark, like I said, just go back in with that regular base color and go back over, and you can fix your mistakes rather than going in with the eraser. So fix just a couple more of these, and I think we'll be done. All right, guys. So that's it. A snowman using a technique using no lines, just basic shapes, and then coloring directly on top of those layers with the noise brush to give a nice three-dimensional look. All right, guys, that's it for today. Hopefully you gained some insights from today's video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and comment below. Let me know, are you getting the new iPad? What are your thoughts on the whole 4 gig versus 6 gig situation? Did you know ahead of time? Have you heard about this, or is this the first time that you're hearing about it? Let me know. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. I've got new videos coming out all the time. And as for me, I can be found online at bjdell.com. and on Instagram and Twitter at bjdell. So thanks for watching, and until next time, keep creating.